It's online?
Mhm.
Okay,
Well, I
well,
see the stream here.
okay, it looks like it. Yeah, it's working. Great, excellent. All right, so welcome everybody to the Q&A&Critique number 53, the Let's Bforartists edition. So this is a live stream digital art and questions and answers event, and we have two very special guests today. A close friend of mine, Purzbeats, and SmallzKillin, who's here connected in the Discord voice chat here to talk about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the use of them as art tools. So at the current moment, on Twitter, just like the topic of NFTs, we have a polarizing trend between artificial intelligence and machine learning and the art that is being produced with services like Midjourney and DALL-E. So we're going to take a look at that and walk through some of the techniques and art, and also get to know about these two artists and what they do. So without further ado, how are you both? How's it going?
Hey,
Hello.
doing good.
Excellent.
Happy to be here.
Excellent. So let's start with Purz right now, and then we'll move on to you, Killin, because I have gone through your Twitter. I couldn't find your art station, unfortunately, but if you have links or a link tree, please throw it into the chat, and then I can take a closer look at what you do. So Purz,
Okay.
I have your link tree here, and I'll just throw it up into the chat as well. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, first thing, I don't really use my link tree. It's just purz.xyz. That's like my go-to spot. So if you want to check out any of my stuff, just hit purz.xyz. But yeah, I'm an artist. I'm from Toronto, musician and VJ. And I started using Blender to make content for our live shows and just kind of gone nuts with it since then for about 2.5 years now, I think. So ever since the pandemic started, basically. I used to make stuff in After Effects and Premiere and filming stuff and glitching it up, but was terrified of 3D software until I started playing with Blender and doing a bunch of tutorials. That's me, basically.
Excellent. And I've known you quite often as mostly what I would call a kinetic artist. I've noticed that you are very hands-on. You've also done work with Cables, which is a online nodal system for web generative art. I've also seen you work with geometry nodes quite often, shaders as well, and you like to plug and play with your nodes. So can you tell me a little bit about your method?
Yeah, well, I've been a drummer my whole life and a musician, and just I like jamming ideas out, recording them, and then paring them down. So I think I took that to my visuals as well. Whereas, a lot of people go in with a plan. I tend to go in just improvising until something hits, and then refining it and retroactively figuring out sort of what it actually is. Sometimes I have an idea or whatever, but
All right. Did my Discord crash?
Found on someone else discovered. And yeah, I just like to mix and match everyone's crazy shaders and geometry nodes toys that they put out there and make generative pieces from them. And yeah, that's my vibe. I like jamming and paring down, jamming and editing, basically.
Excellent. So you're an artist of all aspects: music, visuals, video, 3D, 2D. All right. So my last and final questions before we move on to Killin is, what's your relationship with AI and artificial intelligence art generation tools?
Well, I have Aphantasia, which makes it impossible for me to visualize things. I just see blackness in my mind, so I can't I can't imagine things. So when this tool came around that lets you type crap into a window and just show it to you, obviously something woke up inside me where I was now able to have this tool I've never had my entire life. So now I was in Midjourney Wave 1, so I think I have over 8,000 images created on Midjourney, and then I was in the DALL-E 2 program early on. So I've been using these tools for, you know, almost, and I was actually doing a lot of Google collabs, like diffusion stuff before as well, but it was mostly just tinkering because that stuff's really you know, it's really involved. But now with Midjourney and DALL-E 2 and some of the other ones, yeah, you can get results, iteration and results way faster. And yeah, I'm just blown away by the potential there. And I make a lot of stuff and I refine a lot of stuff. And there's a million ways to use it, but we can get into that later.
All right. This is a beautiful introduction. So thanks for that, Piz.
Yeah.
All right. So Killin, he's still around. I've had a look at your art.
Yes, I am.
So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh, of course. I don't have a linked page like that. There's not really a portfolio site. I used to do that stuff, but nobody would ever go to it, even when they were supposed to be looking at it. So it's just wherever I'm active, and that's Twitter for right now. That's where I'm posting any, you know, works I do.
I'll link that up into the chat.
There's a couple links. One of them I could send you because in terms of what my day job is every day, I mostly do graphic design, and honestly 3D is a very small part of it. I'll DM this to you right now.
Okay.
So that we can get the website up, because like what I do day to day is oh my god, come on, copy. I'm super prepared, guys. It's okay.
It's all good.
I'm definitely not wasting time at all. It's fine. I'm not panicking. Okay, so I just DM'd it to you. So in terms of my day job, I literally just I work in a manufacturing company that deals with hair care and shampoo, and I'm in the marketing end. And essentially, what I do is I take a huge database of pre-rendered images that were created by me, and slap clients' content, brand, and a design that was ultimately made by somebody else onto these 3D images, and then produce some simple marketing materials for them. And the purpose of this is so that they can start advertising and marketing their product before they even receive it. And that's basically what I do every day, is copy pasta. But in terms of me for like art, I started off as a fine artist. So graphic design was sort of something I fell into as a result of college and just all the art history. I was like, this is ridiculous. Oh, graphic design has way less art history. I'm going to go do that. And so I was just a traditional artist. I did a lot of illustrations with like ink and stuff. There's a recent thread that I posted that has a lot of my college artwork and then posted after college. Why is that not copying the link? And okay, so yeah, that's on my Twitter. For some reason, I'm apparently not able to copy anything. I've got too many windows open. So yeah, a lot of traditional work, and eventually it was through working in this company that I had to figure out how to use 3D programs, because our company, which doesn't handle any of the manufacturing, we outsource all of that. We have no physical representations of what we are made, so I have to fake everything. I have to make it all from zero, and I have zero references. So the only way for me to do this was through 3D, and it was quite a journey learning the program, and Blender was there for me. So it was just pretty inspiring, seeing what everybody was doing, sharing all of their research and studies, and just been working with that for probably the past 5 years or something about that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Great. So I scoured through your Twitter.
I do music as well. I forgot to mention that. I've been in a lot of bands. A project I'm reviving for another album is None Shall Thrive. And there's the Bandcamp right here.
Oh, wow. What content?
Oh my god. It's like folk metal. It's with acoustic guitar, and there's a little bit of screaming.
What a great mashup.
Thanks, man.
Here's the link. Let me just pull that up.
And musically, I started with high school doing like alternative indie, then went right into progressive death metal, and just been with metal ever since then.
Excellent. Now I can see where your art is, where it's drawing from. Your music is really embodied with your latest sculpts. I've noticed you've done some nebula, some wispy smoke, or like a stellar body. You've done some really interesting, almost grotesque sculpts with lots of wrinkles and interesting concepts, similar to maybe something from Dark Souls, especially these fingers here. I recognize that one. You also done some other pieces with some excellent black and white contrast and other sculpts here. Which some of them I've noticed maybe a little bit not safe for work, but I've noticed that
Oh,
you're...
for sure, yeah.
But
it's actually probably best I didn't send you that old thread because there's a number of naked bodies on it. So
that's okay.
there's actually an illustration of a buff nude man like just eating another naked man with their mouth.
Which I think is Jupiter or Saturn that did this?
Yes, that was Saturn devouring the sun.
That's right, yeah. An excellent story. This particular piece here I really love. So,
thank you.
In the same thread of the vein as Purz, what is your use of artificial intelligence or machine learning at the moment? What is your experience with it? What's your connection?
Right now, it's super minimal. It's very sort of in test, trying to figure out the best way to implement it. I've not honestly spent a ton of time really sinking my fingers into it. I found that how I produce most of my prompts is giving me a lot of really interesting stuff, but it's not necessarily what I'm looking for type of a deal. And I'm not entirely sure how to talk to the program to help direct it in a better way of what I'm like trying to achieve. And sometimes ultimately just sort of working at it from scratch without AI would give me something closer to what I want than what the AI generator has given me so far.
Okay. So you see it's a tool, it's a machine. Okay, cool. All right, so without further ado, I have a bit of a link dump which I'm going to quickly explain. So for those of you who haven't used AI tools before, there's just over the past few years, there's been a lot of advances with neural networking and machine learning types of code where you can train a model or a program using a data set or different sets of iterations to kind of, I guess you could say, render new types of information or to kind of approximate a goal. So you can reward a good result, you can discard a bad result, and you can do this very quickly using the tech that we have today. So the two big ones that we know of is Midjourney and DALL-E. So basically DALL-E is created by an OpenAI subsidiary of Google. And Midjourney is an independent institution, but there's the founder of Second Life who's worked with that, and a couple of other great geniuses who've put together that service. Currently works in Discord. And then we also have other things, for example, like a software called Armorlab, which is a sister software of Paint. So this developer has started to create software that uses machine learning or artificial intelligence to automatically tile your textures and also to extract a PBR result from a photo texture. And there are other tools that I would like to mention as honorable runner-ups is Dane, which is a very cool depth-aware frame interpolator between for video, and Waifu X2 Cafe, which is one of my go-to tools for upscaling. There are many others. There are many types of machine learned or trained upscalers, including from NVIDIA and others, but I quite like this one. So with that, I'm just going to give you guys these links, and we're going to take a closer look and just continue. So let's begin the panel, and I'll start showing you a little bit about the textures from DALL-E. So first things first, I wanted to ask you guys both, how do you feel or how do you sense the cultural reception of Midjourney and DALL-E in the community and the Discord servers and on Twitter? The other day we had a little bit of drama. I won't mention it too much, but it kind of spurred from that moment. I wanted to ask you guys, how do you sense the general public's reception to this technology, especially with concept artists? in particular?
I'll let Purbs go first.
Well, I mean, so like the main. I would say most people are pretty just like on the fence about it. They're interested, but they're not like, they don't think it's good enough yet or whatever. But there's also the sect of people who scream that typing words into a website isn't making art. That's like a totally large argument, I guess. But to me, they're all just tools. So like, I don't know. Trying to gatekeep and tell people how they create is a recipe for disaster, in my opinion.
That's right. What about you, Killin?
Okay. Could you refresh the question?
All right, so my question is, what's your perception of the general public's perception in the social debate about artificial intelligence, specifically in the context of concept artists? Some people maybe are afraid or not, or what do you think? Do you think it's okay? Is it like an issue or non-issue? Is it something that we should be worried about?
In my personal opinion, it's just sort of a non-issue. It's just kind of a tool that people can choose to use and explore or not. Like nobody's got to use this. And I don't see this really replacing anything that anybody's currently doing. It's just going to be alongside as sort of a different avenue. I had initially thought, hey, nobody really in large volume of numbers here really cares about, or is against the program and the exploration and the technology. I thought, people weren't really concerned. I thought it was more of like, the philosophical question of like, that everybody poses to AI of how it could potentially replace humans, but ultimately never can. And then, there was the little powwow that happened on Twitter, which sort of opened up my eyes to the fact that a lot of people are really sort of intimidated and terrified.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily fully understand some of the issues. I do see room to discuss the ethics of some of these programs. But I don't know, like for me, in the end, it's just my personal, it's just kind of like, it's makes a lot of really cool looking stuff. Why not use it?
That's right. Okay, so I have a picture here that I've loaded or saw that somebody generated on Discord. And this particular image is basically a panoramic landscape of maybe early morning or something. But the prompt was absolutely massive. I remember this prompt, looking at it, and it was about a paragraph with a bunch of text and parameters and features and things. It was almost like somebody was writing a chunk of code. It was a big chunk of text, but the result turned out incredible. I really liked this piece, and I thought it was quite a good thing. So Purz, I just realized we were talking last night that they had upgraded their algorithms and they've been working through things.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about how this works to some degree?
Yeah, well, that's another thing about this is like, and I think like Killen was saying earlier, like he hasn't had time to like sit there and learn how to prompt craft yet, and there's a real art to it. Like you can type random crap in and get random crap, but like to actually control the result in a way that's useful, it takes a little while to learn how to talk to these tools. So yeah, I'm blown away by some people's prompt crafting. Like absolutely blown away by the people that put the stuff up in the favorites channel and Midjourney every day, because it's like they're really dialing in their their piece over time, and it's the same sort of iteration I do with all my other work. So I just sort of see it as the same thing. But I am absolutely blown away by how you can like change everything with a single word, or infuse different artist styles, like combining 2 or 3 artists is really cool. Or pushing artists outside of mediums they'd never worked in before, like making HR Geiger do graffiti art.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, like the potential here is just it's mind-boggling.
Okay, that's cool. So as a little token of research that I found this DALL-E 2 prompt book, as we noticed earlier. Is learning how to talk with the machine. I saw on Twitter the other day that sometimes an artist is learning how to dance with machine learning or with AI to produce what they need. Could be with code, could be with text, essays, writing. It could be with text prompts, which OpenAI also has. It could also be with images, video processing, managing data. You got to learn to dance. So there's a little bit of a symbiosis. So in the links that I gave you, I gave a little handbook about how these prompts work. And it gives you a preface of how everything is, different moods, photography, art history, 3D work, techniques, how to fix detail, replace subjects, how to use it, different types of prompts, what things you could do, lighting, different things you need to think about in order to create. So I highly recommend you go through the book. Is super, super complete, and it gives you absolutely everything you would need to understand. Midjourney works in a similar way with their own separate prompts, but in regards to this, it comes to the concept of it's a really interesting tool. So Marty Fouts has mentioned something. He says he has tracked AI hype since the 80s, and you have some insight into the fair, but I don't know that they be relevant here. I think the resistance is from traditional art critics is more interesting. And Slink has mentioned that AI art is never really original, but real art is the same. It's never really fully original, which is true. And Purz has clarified that nothing in AI generates a copy-paste. So when we come to traditional art, I noticed some people, we're going to turn the tables a little bit. I know you guys are that it's a tool, you know that it is useful, you know that it is not a threat to what you do. In fact, it's probably more useful for what you do. But coming as a traditional artist or a concept artist who looks at this and sees this, let's go put ourselves into the shoes of the other side of the argument. Why do you think somebody would be afraid of this type of tech? What's your opinion?
Well, it's the same argument we've had for a million years. Drum machines replacing drummers, photographers replacing artists. Everyone's scared for their job. And I think sometimes that's valid. In this case, I think it's being afraid of Photoshop. It's being afraid of some new workflow that's coming. Like I've said it a million times, this typing words into a website and having it spit out images is the baby steps version of whatever this tech is going to be. Like this is a parlor trick we're doing right now. Like if you see the stuff DALL-E can do with editing and in painting, and then imagine applying those workflows into the apps we use every day, like, it goes way beyond just saying, show me an elephant in a room, master oil painting by Vincent van Gogh.
Should we do that one? Say that again. I'd like to do that one.
All right.
Say that again.
Masterful oil painting. Masterful.
Master.
FUL, yeah. Oil painting of an elephant. Holding a pencil in a room.
By Vincent van Gogh.
There you go. GH.
Oh,
GOGH. You wasted a credit. It's fine.
oh, whatever.
Credits are the new currency for our forthcoming metaverse. So get
That's
used
right.
to just paying Midjourney. You'll have to dream up your food soon.
Oh, geez.
Well, these turned out excellent. I really like this one.
It's cool because there are photos of an elephant painting like that. There's an elephant that paints. So I wonder if it's just stylizing, its impression of those photos, or if it's actually dreaming up each elephant.
Sorry about that.
Personally, I enjoy the Midjourney aesthetic better than what I've seen with some of the others. The
For
DALL-E
me,
one
it's
turned out
Midjourney.
really nice. Like this is sort of like a
Dolly's really good at
paint for the
stylized
aesthetic.
painting, yeah.
Yeah.
But everything else looks like clip art a little bit on Dolly. It's good, but it looks like, to me, it looks like images almost pasted on top of one another. Whereas Midjourney is like it's like a fever dream. No matter what you type, it makes something cool.
Yeah. And in
That's-
But
terms
they
of using
also,
this,
oh, go ahead.
oh, sorry. Oh, I was going to change topic. So if you're touching the topic, please go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say they just added stylization stepping in Midjourney, so you can now say like, I want you to really laser in on what I said, or I want you to like just go ham with what you like. You can apply a sort of target to the weight of your entire phrase, so it can almost ignore your phrase or just use a little bit of it, or like really laser in on it. So they're adding functionality now that lets you control almost like the way it's streaming, which is really powerful.
That's incredible. Yes, I agree with you. Midjourney does have a very dreamy, imaginative concept of the way it generates your art, which makes your brain fill in a lot of the information that's missing and helps you think
it's like
outside the box.
Immediately pleasing.
Machines don't dream, just, putting it out there. I'm gonna be,
Yeah.
elephant in the room. Machines do not dream, okay?
Okay. It's a programmed hallucination that it can't observe on its own.
That's right. It's not
It's not
They're
self-aware.
working on that.
It's a bunch
Yeah.
of images mashed up. It's amazing. But
Oh,
it's not
actually, sort of it's not, but
It's
there's a
not.
very technical explanation about that. So it's actually not mashing images together. It's building a network of connected images and then creating connections between those connections. So it's actually more like a dream than it is like copy and paste.
Don't say that
it's-
first. Don't say that.
I know it's scary, but it's true.
Why does
Don't say
why
that.
does saying it a dream?
Neural networks are a hell of a thing.
Yeah, they're
Oh, wow.
very, 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 very complicated.
They're
More
gonna
complicated
take over
than
the world.
Yeah, but
We're all in
I've seen a
danger.
few videos and I don't understand them.
It's amazing. This all comes from linear algebra. Who would have thought?
yeah, mathematics is what's changed everything. So
It's
this
the new art.
It's the new art.
It's just math.
Okay, that's an interesting concept. All right, so now I understand. Okay, so this was Andromeda Him. You mentioned that the way it works, someone mentioned on Twitter in one of those debates that we had was like, there's a high concept or a concept inside of machine learning or these images that could be ethically copying somebody's work or somebody else's art or somebody else's photography, and they're using pixels, I guess you could say, and they're blatantly violating copyright and plagiarizing other people's work to create new work. So I wanted to ask you both, ethically or morally, do you think this is an argument when it comes to copyright and plagiarism? Do you think companies that are developing DALL-E or Midjourney are in some legal trouble, or is this something completely different?
Well, I think I do remember that dude posting, and I think there was a part of his argument that might have been left out, which was actually the most interesting part about his whole argument about the ethics in regards to it, which had to do, I think it was about DALL-E specifically, this criticism had to do, but it had to do with how the program is cultivating all of the images from all of these artists without anybody's permission. And from, I don't know if this is true, but from how he was presenting that opinion, made it sound as though you have no ability to opt out of your art being involved in the program's research.
Okay.
Which, in terms of everything else he was talking about, I don't know. It's just sort of like a misnomer. Like all traditional artists sort of look at what other older traditional artists did before them, study what they did, build off it, like reshape it. You guys are pretty familiar with that very famous painting in like the chapel with like Adam pointing at God and
Yes.
or something like that, you know? So that hand with Adam has been copied throughout like just centuries of art history. I can't like count the number of paintings that have used and just copy pasted that direct hand, and each one of those was an incredibly famous painting. So there's like legitimately a purpose to creating good art from just cultivating a really successful piece of a previous art that came before you and just kind of building off that as a block or a foundation.
So agree with
And I
that.
don't see these programs really doing anything ultimately different from that. But the concept of ethically whether or not someone who shares their art with the world online, I'm honestly not even really sure how to answer that ethics, if the program ethically should even be allowed to cultivate and just pull all of this together without anybody's approval. Personally, I don't know. Why not?
What do you think, Purz?
Yeah, I so agree. So like, I'm an old I'm a copyright punk. In essentially, I fucking hate copyright. I fucking hate patents. Not a fan. Even as an artist, I release my music. If you want to buy it, you can buy it, but it's free. If you want it, I'll give it to you. I am a big proponent in all information being free. So like, I'm the wrong one to ask about, are artists going to get paid and stuff. But to further on what Killin was saying is like, absolutely, man. Like when I was a kid, I used to watch Star Trek: The Next Generation, and on the Enterprise computer, you could call up any song in the world, and you could listen to it, and it was fine. And I always wanted that for everything, information, everything, just available to everybody. Just like, and just the fact that we're actually getting there, it's so cool to me. And I've been a drummer. Drummers always get screwed on copyright. We can't copyright drum beats. We can't copyright any of that stuff. Only singers and songwriters get to copyright. And so like, I've always been a proponent of putting my stuff out there for free, and you can buy it if you want to support me, but it's out there and use it, and I don't give a shit. And most of the stuff I release for NFTs and stuff ends up CC0 anyway, because I want people to take it, remix it, not copyright it, but remix it and release it themselves. Like it's all source material. We all stand on the shoulders of giants. We all learn from the people that came before us. This is just a more amazing way to get access to that neural net of information.
The aspect that you brought up that where you mentioned the holodeck and the next generation, where you could compute. I was just thinking about that. I never even considered that, and it's eerie how the method of the dictionary, from what you guys have been showing, is eerily like the spoken words in that show when they try to visualize anything in the holodeck or
oh yeah, the
create
computer,
music
that's not
art.
right, do this.
Yeah, well, they'll say a little bit more of this, or they say,
yeah.
Now use this, and then this is almost, it seems like it's almost the exact same method, just in written form.
That's right. It is a holodeck from Star Trek. You're right. Can't
It's
wait.
the process.
Yeah,
It's a process. Just amazing.
We're walking to that moment. That's an excellent
I
idea.
would like to touch a little bit more on some of the fear of because we've been talking about the power and sort of how this program is trying to utilize people's art and sort of all that type of stuff, and some of the fear that people have of how this is going to sort of remove jobs from an industry. So if we could just sort of hone in on one industry, because art it's in every single industry. There's an artist. It doesn't matter what it is. There's an artist in there, conveying and interpreting what's being said to sort of the less esoterically indoctrinated. So let's just look at animation, for instance, because DALL-E and some of these other programs are getting really good, and soon they'll be able to sort of make a completely prompt directed animation. I can see this happening. I can see them moving towards it.
Yeah.
And let's say, for instance, that would essentially mean anybody with a computer and enough time to pump out enough prompts and reiterate to make sure that, each little scene is cohesive enough, could feasibly just be alone, make an entire feature by themselves in a room and completely undercut an entire studio budget and cut out all these jobs. And I think that's ultimately a huge fear. And the reason why I'm not afraid of this is because I could never see it ultimately creating the same thing. Like I could never see feasibly an AI producing something that would ultimately be just as cohesive or just as well produced as like a good funded studio with like multiple people running behind, interpreting and directing meaning.
Yeah, understanding the branding and the style
like
guide
there's
and all.
so much that is involved into like taking something from just an image and putting it into actually something that people pay for.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, wait a second. So one of the aspects about this is that it can replace a production value that would be immensely expensive. For example, the last war movie. Okay. So in other words, could you say I could take a book from, say, Dickens,
Yeah.
or even better, Stephen King, and I could, in essence, dictate that to
Yeah.
an AI app, and then we would get, say, the version of The Stand that we've always wanted. Because
well, I would argue yes, but we would get the version that the computer hallucinated for us.
So that depends on what it's been trained on.
Yeah, it depends on the neural network, all of its connections. Like it's going to be different from program to program, iteration to iteration, and it's not going to be the same like finished product that ultimately a director would have with like a team.
And it won't have the way that it uses language won't be the same as if a human was trying to convey emotion through text. I don't
Went through every frame also, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like just touched it all with the human hand. Like it's just not the same. It's not going to like replace anything. It's going to be alongside us. It's just like a new avenue of producing media.
I was just thinking, like, imagine you're rendering
AI,
something.
Sorry,
But imagine you're
one at a
rendering
time.
something and you just get 10 examples of what it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was
Right?
wondering. Is when you're
Cool.
communicating with the AI, are there nuances that you find that you have to
Yes.
where you have to elaborate in certain ways?
So here's
and
a
as such, you can steer the AI towards what you're seeing.
Yeah, it's kind as I mentioned earlier, I'm like, let me just take the reins over here. What I've just done here in the stream at the moment, if you haven't been paying attention, is I used a generation of some rocks that I'd done earlier to create a tileable texture. So I said I want some stone, I wanted a tileable texture, and I tried to get some normal maps. So in this case, it created a no diffuse, just a texture that I could use to maybe generate normals for later. From this, I tried something else, nice stone with moss, a tileable texture, and it generated these textures as well. Or I used a stone as a tileable texture. These were some of my first experiments, and I've downloaded all of them. And right now, I've been going through each one with Krita, and I've been using Krita to kind of like prepare these textures. So if we go to a texture artist who's using Substance Designer, and he's like, oh my gosh, so this AI is generating textures. All right, okay, cool, it did. It generated some rocks, and maybe another, there's another software called ArmorLab. Maybe this tool in the future is going to replace the concept of generating textures from photos and making these tileable and everything. But for now, there is still a lot of work that I need to do to use this. So I generated a concept, which I will have here. Wait, did I download it? Whoops, let me just double confirm. So I downloaded an image here, I think all of the images here, and I'm now working them to make sure that they're tileable. So there's still some human work that I got to do, which is curation. So curation with the generated art. So for example, if there was another question I saw on Twitter earlier today, it's like, all right, if you can make a perfect game with a prompt and a AAA game, and it's absolutely incredible, the quality is on par with everything that we've ever wanted, and do you think this is good for society? And at the end of the day, what you mentioned with the concept of culture or the human living life and creating story, and the concept of transmitting the person's experience of how they want to talk with each other, the actor, the human element of who we are between each other, and also there are some things that, like, for example, this texture wasn't tileable even though I wrote tileable. I could use another AI machine to fix up the tile, but then I need to use another learnt algorithm to then convert this texture into actual PBR maps that I could use in 3D.
You can mathematically tile stuff, by the way. You don't need AI to do that.
So I have I have a bit of, actually from my AA background, thought on all of this. AI proponents have been proposing that they would make a particular profession of one sort or another obsolete since the 1950s. And through the end of last year, the total number of jobs lost to AI in all disciplines is 40. And
Wait, really?
really, if you go back to 2010, you will find papers claiming at the end of whole categories of jobs, like 40% of all employees would be out of work in 20 years. What really happens is when AI gets introduced, and this is true of any form of computer automation, when it gets introduced, it doesn't make people's jobs go away, it makes them more complicated. And so it takes longer to do something than it used to. And the example that I use for this is, I'm a researcher and I've done a lot of slide presentations in my life. In the 60s, we did this stuff with basically Sharpies on projector screens. It took us about an hour to put together an hour presentation. By the 90s, a presentation with the same amount of information in it was taking 3 days to prepare, because we were using PowerPoint and fancy graphs and thinking about all the different ways of presenting the information. But you know what? It takes the same length of time to get the same amount of information into the heads of the people in the audience. So what doesn't happen is jobs don't go away. What does happen is new kinds of work to do get invented. And that's been true of every supposed AI revolution since 1955.
I agree with that one.
Well, I'm shocked that number 40 was so high. I thought it would be lower, honestly.
So I'd like to I want to counter that statement because I can understand it, and I think there are definitely some points to it. When I worked in software development at Microsoft and Assured in their phone division, the big thing, which was automation within technology, which was simply used to verify that all the code was running correctly. And the idea is that you could increase productivity through automation. That was the goal, irrespective of the byproducts that are of the result of putting that in place. And to your point, you're right. The infrastructure required to maintain AI is pretty huge. It's a pretty significant, thing. And for those people that were previously doing that chore manually, to have their jobs lost, basically gave them the choice of either moving into that AI industry to learn it and to, learn that job skill, or to change your your career. And I don't want to dispute what you're saying. I'm just giving another POV on that aspect.
Interesting. So culturally, just to keep this going into something productive, because we can do this debate all day and walk around these things.
Oh, yeah.
We're all human, and we're all afraid of some things, and there's always something about, okay, so there's a new tech and we're scared of it, or there's a new person in the group and we don't know who they are, so we're nervous of them. We see this in all the types of issues concerning cognitive bias. We often have a bias in our natural brains to be afraid of what is new, to be afraid of something outside of the group, to be afraid of what is unknown. So in this world of the internet, where there's very strong echo chambers, even this particular chat, like, we could have a very strong bias that we're pro AI, pro machine learning, or we could have our own opinions, or we want to step in and do things. even here could be an echo chamber, but how do we work around this? How have you guys navigated the social aspect of it? Okay, so how do you assure somebody to not be afraid that the machines are dreaming, but they're dreaming in a way that we cannot, and they help us to think outside the box? Or how do you assure somebody that even though their job may be at risk as it stands, maybe they have an opportunity for a better job? So I wanted to... You don't?
No, you wait. This is what has always happened. Once the gatekeepers introduce the fear, the only solution is to wait and prove the gatekeepers wrong.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
That's my approach exactly.
You got to keep being a rebel, as artists usually are, constantly.
Yeah, I just make and create. I just make and create and use AI, and if people ask me about it, I'll help them. And if people want to fight me about it, I'll just get back to work because I got things to do.
That's a good one.
Yep, that's the best you can do, is ignore the gatekeepers.
Yeah,
I think
that's
history is always on the side of the rebels that are pushing the new thing. I think
Well,
It's not
history
always,
proves
but
that.
no.
A lot of
but
times it is.
It's more
Yes.
about like the the person who screams that this isn't art. That's usually the person that's wrong. It's
Yeah,
it's
usually,
it's more about like trying to define what creativity is usually a losing battle.
Yes.
I remember back in the days, people would say that's not art because you made that in Photoshop.
Oh yeah,
Right.
and that goes back to
Remember those
everything. That's not music. 'cause
still
you made
happens
the drums
today.
of the drum machine.
It does.
It's the same
God.
argument that was made against photography, and
Yeah.
it's made against every new technology that's applied to art.
Sampling, turntablism, all that stuff.
The
Well, I
great
mean,
D-Day of the camera invention.
the someone once told me is because when I was at Adobe, I knew Photoshop inside and out, and I used it all the time. And this photographer says he doesn't use Photoshop, and I was like, I use it all the time. He's like, well, the difference is that I know how to use the camera more thoroughly. I'm aware of all of its abilities more thoroughly than you do because you're taking those abilities I might normally achieve in the camera and simply trying to reproduce them in a software application, which I thought was an interesting point of view.
One of the things that the software also does, like it because like the database it uses, its collection of like everything humans have sort of made artistically and put online. So, it's not ultimately like it can create anything even beyond the skill of a human is capable of making. Like it's all within the realm of possibility of someone to see and then make on their own.
Well, I'm curious if they're feeding its own results back into itself.
Oh, well, that's interesting. See, there are certain
feedback loop.
things that like I would
Feedback
love
loop,
to know
yeah.
more about
Yeah,
what's
feedback.
going on behind the scenes of these programs.
Yeah, because if they're feeding our input back into it, maybe it's making it better or worse.
I'm sure
Maybe
they
we're
are.
a bunch of idiots, right? Who knows?
Like, it seems like
That would be such a
that would be a
fascinating
mistake on their
experiment.
part not to do that.
It feels like that would be a great resource for Midjourney. Just taking everyone's input and doing stuff with it, the data of that, it seems valuable to me. Of a bunch of people being creative into a Discord server, like.
So when I was studying AI at Stanford, one of the professors there, and I won't name Terry Winograd, would say, "Do you know what happens when you mix all the colors in your palette? You get brown."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was his opinion. This is Winograd, who was fairly famous at the time. That's his opinion of what happens when you try all of these feedback machine learning algorithms.
Yeah,
You get the
that's
average.
definitely possible.
What's
I think it's
interesting about
cool when
that
you
is-
start making hard left turns, though.
Yeah. So I was, when I first started glass blowing, one of the classes we had was working with color. And it was that exact same thing. People, instead of choosing like maybe one or two colors, people would choose to color their glass with all of the different colors. And as a result, they got the exact same result, which was more. There was a human choice to go that route. And so it's kind of interesting that, when ask AI to do the same thing, will you get the same result?
That's a good, yeah. I mean, because I would argue that AI, like, it's sort of incorporating the success
Yeah.
of what, you know, artists have been sort of generating and sharing. So yeah, if you're asking it to do a process that would, you know, result in something unsuccessful, arguably, would it be unsuccessful, or is it programmed to always produce a sort of like, I guess, pleasing,
Yeah.
pleasing.
I've found especially Midjourney has a very well-developed sense of palette and composition, and that goes a long way in making nice pieces every time. And I don't know if that's just because it learned what nice palettes are, or if there's something else informing how the palettes work. But like, you know, when you make generative art, I make a lot of generative art, and you just you let it pick random colors, it always looks like crap. It's really hard to just stumble upon a really pleasing palette. You have to go and intentionally make your palettes and then work from within that. But like, just going through my Midjourney stuff right now, and I'm looking at it, it's just like all the palettes are very well defined. The colors hit nice together. They contrast well. There's something else going on, you know, with Midjourney that I don't even see in DALL-E. Even the DALL-E stuff doesn't have this sort of cohesiveness. So I wonder what else is going on with the Midjourney secret sauce.
So Grays, in this session, will you be giving us a demonstration of, you showed DALL-E, can you show the Midjourney?
I don't have credits on Midjourney at the moment, but I'll just give a quick summary of what I have been doing just now. So basically what I did is, here on my screen, I generated a stone, a tileable texture stone from DALL-E, and it generated this material. And then I used Materialize to take this texture to help me generate like this stone material from the photo. So I use the image, I use the colors with some sliders and things to help me generate the PBR set. Right now it's very metallic because I'm using that as a specular map instead. But I use this system to create the PBR set, including normal maps, AO map, edge map, smoothness, and then I export that. Then inside this engine here, I've been using I use the same texture, and I'm using a world space triplanar so that I can like quickly generate this rock and work with it using the shaders. So I loaded the PBR set here inside of Blender or Bforartists using the node wrangler. Then in the future, just a sneak peek, we will be shipping a default asset browser with some extra nodes. There's one of them that I added, which is a triplanar mapping node and a world space node. So basically a world space node makes sure that the texture is stuck in world space, and the triplanar makes sure that you can create a rock without UVs, and at most angles it will work. It's not as good as Unreal Engine, but it does the trick to kind of get like this world space texture if you want. So with that, you can generate your rocks with I'm using geometry nodes here to generate some rocks using a convex hull, and there we go.
What's it called with your triplanar? It could be that some of the normal masks might be off. They might not be. I'm not sure, but
it's just there's a convergence angle right at the 45 degrees.
Right.
But in general, it works.
Maybe you could try a rotation of the angles and then adjust the normals. Like, there probably is ways of making it better.
Yeah, the traditional way is basically instead of using
the normal direction.
You could also use the box version of the texture. So the box version of a texture, you have to go one by one by one on each texture, and instead of saying repeat flat, you just change it to box, and then it will fix. But in this case, I use the node because this gives me a better sense of control, and I can just plug it into all of them at the same time without changing them one by one by one by one. So with that, I used AI. I used a tool that was in the future will be done by AI And I'm using different types of tools here in the 3D space so that I can quickly create a procedural rock which has a seed and place it anywhere in the world. So let me just expose the seed. 1 second.
Also try random rotation on those cubes.
That's a good idea.
Also maybe use like a different one. Yeah.
Hey, I got a question.
Yes.
And you
Alright.
have to add to the seed, otherwise it's still the same value.
Add to the seed.
So
Yeah,
cool.
like just +1 or something to the seed. You know what I mean?
Just AI generating textures like it's nothing.
Mhm. I was.
So, Dre's, you said someone was critical about you using an AI-generated image to produce a tileable texture like this?
Not anymore, no.
Oh, okay.
No, he deleted the entire conversation and blocked us all.
Yeah. It's no longer relevant. But that's it for today.
Yeah. Because my one question would be is how is that any different than just taking a photo?
Well,
Yeah, I
there
don't
is
think
the argument. There is no
Right?
difference.
Like, what, are you going to be
Or
mad at
photo
people using your
scanning.
photo? Or photo scanning? Like,
yeah,
what?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I guess illustrators can't trace anymore. Is that it? Huh?
well,
No,
I mean, in
it's
my
maybe
case,
they developed a tool based on other people's work,
right.
and then they're selling
Oh,
it.
Okay.
Okay, I don't necessarily
I got
agree
more
with
questions
that or
on
go
that,
one way or the other. It has substance to the argument.
So here's the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The difference is, if I do that, I get crap. And he does it. He knows what he's doing because he's put a lot of time and effort into learning skills to use the tools he has available to him. That's the difference. The difference is these tools still require time and training or time and practice in order to develop with them. The AI is never going to get past that point.
I
But
agree.
you're also deciding the result in the changes that you're making. You're deciding the result that you want.
Right. And as long as you've got feedback, it's going to require skills that you have to develop. It's just like using an automatic setting on a camera, right? It doesn't do you any good at all if you don't know that you want to shoot in the morning for the kind of light you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or I want to be in golden hour. You know, if I don't know to take that shot during golden hour.
Yeah, if I shoot at noon, I'm going to get great, perfect balance and everything, but it's still going to look like I shot at noon.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with this stuff. It takes an eye, it takes skill, it takes practice. And that's always been the reason why the technologies win out over the arguments against them. I'm crap at Photoshop, as are like 90% of the people who use it. But the people who know how to use it are the ones who create art with it. Well, sorry. If you try to create art, you create art. That's my personal opinion. But the ones who create successful art are the ones who take the time to develop the skills.
That's right.
I got a devil's advocate question.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. So let's say you exclusively use AI and you only input prompts, okay? What if someone calls you a curator and not an artist?
They're an idiot. I'm sorry.
Honestly, yeah, that's my point. I think that's their failing, in my opinion.
Nice.
I know a lot of artists that are friends of mine that maybe weren't amazing at what they were trying to do before they got into AI, but now with the tool that they have, the stuff they're making is really cool and unique to them. And yeah, maybe someone else could get the same thing by typing the same thing in, but you know what the difference is? They didn't.
That's powerful, dude. I love that shit.
It's sort of like I can play that. Like I can play that song on the radio. Yeah, but you didn't. The guy who played it on the radio is the one who did it. And it's cool that you can do it too, but you didn't do it first and you didn't do it. So,
or even if like it's not a super original riff, like you didn't do the cool thing with it that made it popular. Like you didn't do anything with it.
But that's fine. And it just to sit there and try to critique other people's creativity, I think it's a losing sum battle. Like why not get a hobby?
Well, here's another comment. Besides my smartass, it's you're an idiot. He's an idiot. when somebody offers you a criticism, your response should be, "Does this help me improve my art?" And if it doesn't, forget it. They weren't helpful.
I think it's interesting in that I open up everything I say. I think it's interesting, and then, but also there are people that so love the type of any given artist they might find so inspiring and they love so much, but they feel that they can't. They want to do the same type of thing, but they can't, and then they come upon this AI, which feels like a handicap that they may have, that they have has been removed. Do you think that is a viable, perception?
In this case, I will answer this question
So
before I
ableist.
close. I strongly think, if we go back to my history of my generation that I did, just yesterday, I did this yesterday. The one good thing about DALL-E is that you think it could be a handicap, but at the same time, it is also extremely liberating as a professional artist. So for example, this was one piece that Per shared with me that I could zoom out an image that I upload by removing the empty space around it, and I just write zoom out. And with that, it would generate and fill in around the image. So the cover of today was actually half made by the artificial intelligence, but the central part of the image I created 100% by hand. Well, I guess you could say using the digital tools. But it gave me ideas that I had never dreamed of. For example, adding a picture in the background, adding more guard rays, adding some curtains, making a round table with a book on there, or her seat is curved instead of straight, or there's lights beside the wall instead of a cell phone, which what it was originally. Do I consider this a concept that is I'm cheating, or is it like detriment or helping me because I couldn't think of these things? Well, it did, but it freed me in a matter of seconds to think up some new ideas. And I did this with some other pieces of art as well, where I uploaded this one and it gave me a different color palette. There's one that really spoke to me when I uploaded this piece here. I uploaded this piece on the left, which is a pre-rendered piece, which I still need to do color balancing, and it gave me the colors and the color balancing for me in a matter of seconds so that I could replicate this and save time. I wouldn't consider this as an aid or something that helps a handicap, but I would consider this as a concept, a system that helps you get out of art block. So for example, these shots here where, for example, I needed to get an idea for a woman in a cafe. There's one where you see reflections of the cars in the window. I would have never even thought about that if I hadn't done my research. But in this case, doing research sometimes takes hours. But in this case, with a couple of words of a general intention of my art, I can generate the idea in a matter of seconds. From hours to seconds. And this is not, it is not something for people that have difficulty. This is something for professionals who already know what they're doing or need to do, and it is a time-saving tool. So in answer to that, I don't consider this something that is cheating. It's not cheating. This is just another tool. Does it answer the question?
No, but I mean, I can see a person who may have always wanted to make this
Say that again?
close to it. And now, if they can do it, they feel like it's a handicap that's been removed from them.
That's
so
me.
artistically,
Yeah.
they feel free to explore this area and just go, it's like a gateway to a garden that's just been removed, and you're able to go in and explore everything, which I find fascinating.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it breaks my heart that people want to say you can't do that, and that's wrong, that you should find freedom.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so you
What
gotta...
about people who don't have access to technology or don't have access to these kinds of tools, or never get the time to learn them? What happens to them?
So-
I think that's the
Good
fear
push.
of most people.
Oh, they'll be
think,
left behind.
No. So okay. I can speak to that for a little bit. Both Dolly and I think Midjourney are adding it soon. They both have subsidiary programs for people who can't afford to get access to the tools. So if you literally can't afford access to the tools, they will sort you out. You just have to contact them. And more specifically,
but,
just
like,
hold on,
I'm
just hold
saying-
on. Just 1 second. The exciting thing is these tools are actually more democratizing than anything, because before nobody could run these because you need like 48 like $2,000 GPUs connected in sequence. So like no one could do this before this. So the fact that even people have access to it through Discord is democratizing. So it's really exciting. So like if you can get near a library or anywhere, you can get subsidized free Dolly
Oh,
access,
that's true.
and you're off to the races. So
I think that's an awesome idea.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I'm saying like some people, because there's gonna be people who don't know how to use a computer, who don't have access to a library because they're out there.
Mhm.
That's the fear I think people have on AI. That some people will never get, enough information or will never learn the tools, and they will become obsolete. That's the fear of people.
It's
Because
unfortunate, but
you
it's
cannot you cannot say that everybody has a computer or everybody has access to a library, because people live in remote places and sometimes
absolutely.
they don't even have electricity.
So
That's a big deal.
I just want to say, like, again, like these AI programs aren't replacing anything. It's just
No,
something that's going to be moving
Yeah,
alongside.
yeah.
So, like, the people that
I
don't
know
want to
that.
use these things or adopt their features or incorporate it into their workflow, that's fine. They'll still be okay. Like, there's still large markets for very traditional forms of art that don't incorporate any
But I'm not saying just
technology.
in art. I'm saying, AI on everything.
AI on
maybe
everything.
some-
So you
yeah,
like
like
different
people
markets or
think-
industries type things, like a completely unrelated industry from art.
Yeah, like everything
manufacturing.
could become AI, and then people fear that if I don't keep up, then I'm gonna become obsolete. And for some people, that might be a reality, and I think that's pretty scary. That's why people attack these kinds of technology. I mean, in my opinion, because
Yeah.
May I talk?
Right, one at a time.
Yeah.
Marty.
Let him go first if you'd like. I didn't have anything real
go Slink.
important to say.
Like we could paint like digitally and then print it, but there's still a demand for oil painters who paint with real oil or other like physical paint. Just because it is physical, you can paint like something which looks like oil painting Photoshop and print it, but it isn't like the real thing. So there will still be demand for the real thing.
Do you think this will increase the price of the real thing?
No, I don't think. I just don't think the demand will decrease. Just because you can just because you can paint it digitally doesn't decrease the demand for the real thing.
Well,
Because
there
people
is
still
a
want it.
slight difference, because in an actual painting you have texture, for example, or, thick acrylic.
And
you're
you-
going to have something that has surface texture and such, which is indicative of something that was actually created by human. Whereas with a digital, digital painting, you don't have that same type of experience.
Yeah, but from
I have
far
a
away it looks the
controversial-
same.
Yeah, I have a
True.
controversial opinion here, which
You
is that JPEGs have no value, and also
is true.
a in-person physically produced, let's just say painting, doesn't really matter, but let's just say it's a painting with like the brush strokes, the layers, all of that. When you see it in person, it's not the same as when you see a JPEG of it online.
Well,
Like
that's for sure.
the two are not the same thing. A JPEG of a painting is not the painting. The JPEG is, whenever something is able to be mass produced, like on like a massive scale, the affordability of that item goes way up. If something can't be mass produced, it's obviously got to cost more because there's just 1 or 3 of them.
Okay.
And I think what's really interesting is what NFT has done with this whole argument, which is just sort of, honestly, NFTs are what brought me to the conclusion that JPEGs ultimately have no inherent value in and of themselves. They're just pixels, and
Yeah, but I guess we could leave that topic for another day because we're running out of time.
Yes, please.
All right, but thank you everyone for hanging out here for the whole hour. This has been a very interesting conversation, insights, topics about artificial intelligence and machine learning as a tool. It was fun to use a texture that was generated by DALL-E and do some of the manual work to make these rocks, and using geometry nodes to just generate this quick rock generator. It was cool to also tease the new default asset library for you guys in the future. And it's also very good to have all of you here. So Purz and Killing, thanks for your opinions and also your experience with this art. Also thanks for helping us be less fearful of a future and also putting light to concerns and different things. And it's also very healthy that we can talk about this. It's very good to support each other as artists, to support each other as humans, despite our fears, despite the uncertainties of what good things there are or what bad things. It doesn't really matter. But either way, we're all human, and I'm happy that we could do this. So thank you once again. And I'm going to finish the stream here, and
thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Bruce.
It was, the honor's mine. The honor's mine.
You got one thing you didn't. I'm not sure if I caught this, was the cost of using DALL-E.
I don't know the price exactly, but
DALL-E is, I think, $15 for 115 credits, so 115
generations
usages. Yeah,
What's the hardware expense? Like, what can you run that on?
it's a web browser. You just have to be able to run a web browser.
Oh, so it could be a Chromebook even.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and it stores on their
At
side
least you have internet.
the last 10 images, so you just download them or add them to your collection.
Wonderful. And what's the max res that it'll support?
I don't know that one.
I think it's about 1440 by 1440, but it might be something else around there. But I don't think it's more than 2K.
Yes, you would have to use another machine learning upscaling system to make it bigger.
That's free, actually.
Yeah, those are free. So, cool. If you guys like what I do, well, and you'd like to be featured as a special guest in the future, just drop me a message. If not, well, we can take a look at your art in the future, and we can go through your art, and also like and subscribe. And yeah. All right, I gotta finish the stream here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Darius.